All right, and up next we have Sagittarius rising and sun. For you guys, this Aries solar eclipse happening on April 8th is occurring in your fifth house. And when I was pulling cards for you guys, I got really strong messages around boundaries. And I'm curious like how this is going to play out for you guys. But I'm going to come back to that in a second and talk more about the astrology. So as I mentioned, this eclipse is in the fifth house. It is conjunct, exactly conjunct Chiron in Aries at 19 degrees. So when we see something like this, generally we're all having to process something emotionally. It's a little bit more of a time of sensitivity. Things from the past can come up. And it's a time in general when we're asked to embody more of this Aries energy in some facet of our life. So having clear boundaries, having assertiveness or a strong sense of individuality and self that is separate from others, having a very strong willpower, knowing what we want and not letting that become influenced or diluted from external influences. So it's really this I am that's strong and like knowing who it is and what it wants. With this being in the fifth house, there's a very strong desire nature because the fifth house has a lot to deal with what we crave and what we are naturally gravitating towards, what we're naturally gifted at, what is naturally interesting to us, the things that bring us a lot of joy or excitement, that make our life feel juicy or worthwhile. And so I feel like you guys are coming into a phase with this eclipse in the fifth house where you're opening up to something that you really want. For some of you guys, this could be a new romantic connection. For some of you guys, this could be having a child, starting a creative project, opening up to more authentic expression in your own life or in your sexuality. It's going to differ from person to person, but there's a sense of you being able to feel more alive, to feel more connected to this kind of juiciness that I'm talking about. And the only way that we can do that, though, is to first look at this Chiron and Aries energy, which is very much about, again, the wounding or even the childhood kind of triggers that come up emotionally when we're pursuing that joy. And as I mentioned, Aries is a lot about that separateness, that knowing who I am, knowing what I want, not being too influenced, not letting enmeshment happen or people to control anything or to get stuck in a bubble with someone. It's like really having your own essence. And if we don't have the proper boundaries around that, it can be hard to fully go after this fifth house energy because we can again get super influenced by those around us. So we can get our preferences distorted, or we can get sidetracked when we're meant to be pursuing something that we alone are interested in. We can get sidetracked because we're hanging out too much with somebody else, or we're putting our energy into something that someone else wants us to do. But I don't know. There's a sense of like, and it doesn't have to be a person, but there's a sense of needing to have very clear containers within your life. And I see that with both the vessel and the skin card. And I feel like, again, this is going all the way back to this Chiron and Aries, wounding in childhood. Sagittarius in particular typically have to deal with things in their childhood surrounding a lack of boundaries, especially if you have Venus in Sagittarius. That could look like so many things. So before I get to this card message, ask yourself, like, did I have my boundaries like crossed as a child without even knowing? So this could look like people coming into your room without knocking, people touching your stuff, people talking over you, people, I don't know, like there's just so many ways, people telling you how to be or what to do instead of the normal parenting. I think that's kind of a fine line because the parenting involves some of that, but you know, where it's like just an invasion a little bit or crossing the line a little bit. That can be a Sagittarius experience. And I think that some of those things can come up at this time for you to emotionally address and reset your sense of boundaries. Because as a child, you might have been taught a dysfunctional form of boundaries, or you might have been taught that it's rude to have boundaries, or that you're being aggressive to say no to somebody, or that you can't just do what you want. Like, you have to first listen to what other people want. I don't know what you're taught, but it's helpful to look back at those early messages and how that is emotionally influencing you at the time of this eclipse, because it's really about holding that firm container. And again, I see that with these two cards, the vessel and the skin. So both of these have to deal with containment. The skin contains our body. It separates us from the outside world, but it also is what helps us connect. So it's not just the boundary of separation, it's also connecting to our physical body. So it's what helps us remain connected to ourself, to our truth, to our North Star, which is what Aries and the North Node being in Aries is all about. How do I stay connected and authentic to what I really, really desire and not let the kind of porousness of Libra, of outside influences, to get in and distort that internal image? We also have the vessel. The vessel also contains, and it's stable, it's protecting, it's strong, it's consistent, it's clear, it's defined. And you can think about the vessel as like a bank account, which protects your money. It saves your money. You can think about this as a womb if you're wanting to have a child. What do you need to do to take care of the vessel or the containers in your life? Do you need to have that savings account? Do you need to do something to ensure that your womb is strong and you can hold a baby, or that you are improving your health so that you can manage your day-to-day life? Do you need to do something around the home to ensure that there's proper boundaries within the home, with the people that you live with the way that you, I don't know, organize your home? There's a sense of like having things contained and properly defined and protected in order for your boundaries to feel sacred, and in order for you to feel safe enough to really go after the things that you desire. And that safety is a really big theme here, because the ruler of this eclipse, Mars, is in your fourth house, conjunct Saturn in Pisces. So Mars being in the fourth house is all about that feeling of safety, especially within the home, especially emotionally, or in relationship with your family, or those really intimate relationships. How contained and safe do you feel? With Pisces in the fourth house, you again could have grown up in an environment where there could have been some form of enmeshment or victimhood and like taking on responsibility for other people's emotions, this whole dynamic. And so again, this is super important to get clear in every sense, on an emotional, physical, spiritual level. How are my containers? How are my boundaries? How are my vessels, I guess? And so some questions that you can ask are, how is it being held together? Is it broken? Does it need to be repaired? Is it empty? Is it full? Is it loose? Is it too tight? Do I feel suffocated? Am I trapped in an environment? Am I feeling like stuck or oppressed? Maybe that's too much of control in that sense. So I know this is a little bit like abstract, but I feel like there's something that you guys can glean from the idea of the visual of your boundary. And if you close your eyes, what does it look like? And maybe go through and examine the different areas of your life and see how you can create that sense of safety for yourself. I think many of you guys are going to have, again, the ability to pursue something that truly does fascinate you, that interests you, that you've wanted to create, that you've wanted to do, that you've wanted to have in your life. And so I think that you are, again, going through some kind of growth period. And once you have that proper container, it's going to be possible to create or have or do the thing that you desire. So like I mentioned before, if you want to have a kid, it's like, let's make our womb really fertile or really prepared for that. And then you can go out and do that and have the thing that you want. So that's like a literal example, but there's obviously a lot more that are emotional or energetic or spiritual that are not as tangible. Mercury is also retrograde conjunct this eclipse in Aries. So this could indicate that some of the things that we are doing now, especially in terms of things that we're thinking or decisions that we're making, communications that we're having, conversations, contracts that we're signing, it could indicate that there's some energy around that may need to be paused, or that we need to come back to it and reflect upon it more. So you might have an idea of what you want now, and that changes up later. Or you might decide how you want to prepare your boundaries or take care of your boundaries, and then you get more information later, or you make certain changes later. Or you're going back and you're looking at old things that have happened, or the old things that you've been interested in, and wondering how you can do it better this time, or wondering how to re-engage with that old thing. So there's a sense of like revisiting something, or something not being finalized with a Mercury retrograde. As I mentioned, with Mars and Saturn being in your fourth house and being together, there's very much this vision of the long term. And so the decisions that we make now can impact our family, our home life, our emotional life, our connection with our loved ones, our physical environment for a long time. And so it's important to, again, make sure that you have the proper boundaries in place so that it's something that can solidify when in a healthy way. So we want to start it off on a good foot, if that makes sense. We want it to feel like we are thinking about everything realistically and properly, and knowing kind of what we need to do to ensure success. It might be a little bit hard to do that because we do have Venus and Neptune together. Venus is in Aries, conjunct Neptune in Pisces, and Venus is in your fifth house. So this energy can be very like idealistic. It can be feeling like, oh, anything is possible. And I don't know, it can just, it's not always very grounded into reality. It's really good for creativity, spirituality, healing, and helping us move forward with things from an emotional perspective. But it's not necessarily the most factual, logical energy. It can get us swept off our feet. And so it's important to also keep in mind that while we're needing to like be logical and practical, there's going to be part of us that might not see all the things that could go wrong, or might not see the reality of the situation totally clearly. And so just accounting for that, like kind of trying to question yourself a little bit more, like, am I idealizing something, or do I need to intuitively, do I feel like maybe I need to put in another boundary, or I need to do something a little bit differently to ensure that my idealism isn't just like gonna fall flat because I didn't actually protect and create this vessel, or do the things that I needed to do to ensure its success. I hope you know what I'm saying by that. So it's like not being so overly optimistic that we ignore or look past things that could go wrong, but instead ensure our success by anticipating those things, by shoring up our boundaries and making sure that we're nice and strong, and we're taking care of the things and nourishing things that in the way that we need to, so that they can have room to grow stably. So, okay, I pulled some cards for you guys. There's two different messages coming through. First of all, I got the Five of Cups, Temperance, and Ten of Pentacles. So I'm really getting the sense that there's something in your life that was disappointing to you, that didn't work out, that may have hurt you emotionally, that you are healing from, and you're coming into more stability with this Ten of Pentacles. This also reminds me of the fourth house where Mars and Saturn are. So there's a sense of things becoming more stabilized within the home, or feeling financially stable, or feeling like you are surrounded by people you love. It's just like there's something about this energy where you may have felt some loss or some disappointment, and now it's being transformed into, I'm actually really good where I am. And so I think that's a lot of around what this eclipse is about, with Chiron being on the eclipse. It's cathartic to process what has happened in the past, and then you'll realize that you're actually, as a result of processing that and like diving more into what you want to do next, I think you'll realize that you are like a lot happier and more stable than you even thought you were. I think you're gonna find that it's almost like you had to go through that uncomfortable emotional experience so that you could get to this place where that thing that you have now is stable. So like, let's say that you wanted to have a job. Maybe you got the wrong job and it was really shitty and it hurt your feelings, everything that happened with it. And then you heal around that and you find like the perfect job at the perfect time. And it was like, for whatever reason, you had to go through that pain to get to the stability and the thing that was meant to last the test of time. And so I feel like some of you guys might need to hear that message. Another thing that I see, and I think this is more so dedicated to like what you guys are wanting to do next with this Knight of Cups. This is like very again, this is very Venus and Neptune. It's like romantic. It's Don Juan charmer. Like, ooh, this, this is so fascinating to me. This is so like getting swept off my feet. I'm excited about this thing. I'm just like, it's magnetizing me. And then we have the Four of Swords. So there's an energy here of maybe trying to, if you feel this energy, it's not like you have to shut it down, but it's just that you don't act on it with this Four of Swords. This is an energy of rest. So even if you feel very strong, like, I want to do this thing, or this thing is perfect, and it's like, let's ride that wave out, because that's going to be a shorter influence than the rest of the eclipse energy, in my opinion. So ride that wave of desire or imagination or delusion by not taking action on it, but simmering with it. And then I feel like you will have some kind of closure or completion around this and be able to achieve, again, what you actually want to achieve, or something that is like that helps you kind of move up in life, or something that feels like you're hitting your stride. So basically what I'm trying to say with this is, you want to have your plan. You can take action on the things that you are trying to create in your life, but there's maybe something also additionally, or some part of you that is also overzealous, over optimistic, that you should rest on that part and keep doing what you're doing with logic, and you'll reach this level of success that you're looking for. So like, let's say that you wanted to be a famous musician. This would be a very much like a Knight of Cups kind of dream. And you see yourself like blowing up on TikTok, and then getting, on a stage, and just like everybody knows you because you were on TikTok or whatever. It's like trying to get this unrealistic thing, or seeing something from an overly optimistic mindset, when in reality, maybe you shouldn't try to focus on going viral. Instead, you should make consistent work, and, whatever it is that musicians do, like performing in places and putting your name out there and continuing to make music on TikTok, but not focusing on that dream and obsessing about that in an unhealthy way. So resting on that energy, and then it's like, by that consistent effort anyway, you're going to get to your goal. So I hope that makes sense. That one was definitely the longest reading out of all, and felt like a lot. So if that resonates, I would love to hear from you down below, or even if it doesn't, I would still love to hear how this eclipse is affecting you. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, share with your friends. If you want a reading from me, check me out at cosmicclarityastrology.com. I will link that in the description box down below, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.